Metapod Podcast, your Pokemon podcast that revolves around the evolving meta. Back with drinks, and by drinks, I mean the morning cup of Joe for your two possibly favorite podcast hosts of the Pokemon trading card game, Jake and Sean of the Metapod. Back today for a huge episode, and we're back to normal as well, as you can maybe see on Sean's screen if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify. If you're on Apple or listening to the audio version, everything's normal again, just to let you know.
Hopefully there's not some weird, I haven't touched OBS in 2 weeks. Oh no, everything changed, Jake.
Well, I hope not. Should we check to see if we're recording at this point?
I see that it's recording. I'm
right.
confident. I believe in the systems, Jake.
And you know what? We probably got to get into it because it is a busy episode. Not only, as we have promised, that this week is Lost Origin set review week. Some big news came out about the Play Pokemon 2022-23 season, which is the one that's starting right now because... The points are starting already.
Get your points, quick! Get your points!
Hurry! Registrations have already opened up. We've been retweeting some of the registrations, favoriting some of the registrations on Twitter as well. Mm-hmm. So again, if you want to register, just like we talked about last week on the podcast, Pokemon for some odd reason depends on Twitter accounts that only have 100 followers or something like that, in order to promote the regional championships. So make sure, I know Twitter is not everybody's favorite thing, right? Join your local Facebook groups, join the Twitter. I don't think Instagram really has much of that stuff, but forget Instagram. We're talking about Pokemon cards today, Sean. But
I will say,
need to talk about,
if you follow the Metapod, we can't guarantee it, but following the Metapod TCG Twitter is easier to find out about all of the different links that you need to register for than trying to figure out each individual event organizer.
And make sure as well that you're signing up when you're signing up, because you only have a 3-minute window to sign up. Make sure that you're signing up for the TCG.
Yes.
As well. I saw several people the last couple weeks accidentally sign up for the Pokemon Go championships.
Oh no.
And yeah, that's tough.
That's a big sad.
But you know what's not a big sad, Sean? 5-star reviews of this podcast. And we're going to read you a 5-star review. You can leave us any review on the Pokemon Podcast 1 to 5. Leave us your thoughts, whatever it may be. We just happened to stumble across this 5-star review. Incredible, purely stunning, by Noel W.Y. As an avid TCG enjoyer coming from Magic the Gathering, returning from Pokemon for the first time since Breakpoint, this podcast has been more than helpful in finding the current meta as well as talking about new collections and how to use new cards in different and unique ways. If you're interested in the Pokemon trading card game at all, listen to this podcast. Noel, thank you so much for the review. And I like that review because they talk about interesting combos with cards, right, Sean? Which is exactly what we're going to do today because That's of, right. Lost Origin.
Big set review. This set is going to be fire.
This set's really cool.
Yeah.
This set is really cool. We've talked about how, Brilliant Stars was kind of the coolest set to open.
Yep.
The coolest set to break since, the shiny ones I'm blanking on right now because it's 6:40 in the morning.
Shining Fates or whatever.
Shining Fates, the coolest set to open since that and Hidden Fates and stuff. Lost Origin might top Brilliant Stars in my opinion. Lost Origin my top Brilliant Star.
But Jake, I was okay. You're the transition person. Go do it.
You started the transition. And I was like, good drink of coffee gets that caffeine. But anyways. We got to talk about some big news that came out last week. It was late last week after the podcast came out. Well, 2 days after. But anyways, local championship points are returning in 2023. So if you did not see, because this was all over Twitter, I think maybe 1 or 2 people made videos about it too. So you may have heard of this, but Pokemon Company International sent out an email to the professors, which are the people that run your local leagues. If you do not know, a professor is someone who runs those events, stating that local championship points will resume in 2023, potentially as early as January. So I think we even talked about here on this podcast, Sean, why there haven't been events, especially locally and stuff like that. And just to remind everyone, they did get suspended in March 2020 due to COVID. So again, we don't know a ton of stuff in terms of the local events when they're coming back. We just know that it could begin as early as January 2023. But as well, in the email, Pokemon asks professors to begin league reporting as of today to ensure that their stores will be eligible to host events beginning in January 2023. So, I like this, Sean. Not only, I mean, of course I like, local events coming back, but I like that Pokemon's not necessarily putting a date on it right now, kind of like Worlds, the previous 2 years before this one, because yes, we want the stuff back. We want locals. We want to be able to compete again back, but like they're like, we're going to try for this. And they've put a little bit more hands in terms of the leagues, but I don't know how they're going to know if they're ready.
Well, I think so. What's interesting here, Jake, is they said they need the league professors to begin reporting their leagues. So again, for those of you who don't know how the whole structure works, there's cups and challenges, which is where you get points. CP is what people refer to it as, in order to qualify for Worlds. But even below that, there is something just called leagues. And that's like, if you go to your weeklies, right? And you're like playing and there's somebody there who's like an official professor. You have to have somebody who's registered with Pokemon. And usually at those leagues, they still give out like participation cards, right?
Promos.
Yeah, like very basic
promos.
Exactly. But those events don't have any CP. But in order to qualify to host a challenge and then eventually to host cups or anything like that, you have to have a regular attendance to a league. Pokemon doesn't want to have cups and challenges that are at leagues that nobody shows up to, because that is a way that people can maybe farm CP, is if you go to
It's really weird. I mean, it's not necessarily super weird how the CP structure works, but I know that I've definitely gone to challenges where there's only 5 people and I just have to win one game. I could go 1-2 and I'd still get a decent chunk of points.
Yeah. And that's fine. That'll happen. And I don't know now if there are more people playing in general than there were back in 2019 when Jake and I started. So it may be a healthier meta, but it is interesting to see that they want people to start reporting, because I think Pokemon kind of needs to know, hey, in the 3 years since we did any of this, how many professors have left the scene? How many stores don't have professors anymore? Or don't host...
How many stores are not around anymore?
Right. They might have some information from their distributors, but just because a store is randomly selling Pokemon cards because of all the hype doesn't mean that they were a store that could host leagues and challenges, right? Different kinds of stores. So, yeah, I think they just need to catch up and be like, okay, let's get a sense of how many stores still are around that do this.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that, yeah.
And bringing the local events back too is just such a good note as well.
Yeah.
Because I think Sean and I have talked about this. Sean's competed in a regional. You competed in what regional did you compete in?
Atlantic City in 2019.
Atlantic City. I always know it starts with an A, but yeah. I'm Atropolis. I'm that's not a real place. In America, at least. I don't even know. Is that a real place? I don't know. Anyways, Sean and I really depend on the local scenes, to play the game. And we make a podcast every single week about the Pokemon trading card game. So it's it just feels really nice to know that we're going to have the ability to go back to that. We don't know if there's going to be regulations. At the Pokemon Regional Championships, you have to wear a mask, right? We don't know if that's going to be enforced or anything like that. At this, it might just depend on store by store. All we know is that they're like, hey, we know that you're pissed about, no cups, right? Or
no cups and challenges.
Cups and stuff, no cups and challenges. We're just going to tell you this right now. Local points coming back in the next season. So don't worry. You don't have to get all your points through regionals, right? You don't have to do the regional world tour.
Yeah, don't go bankrupt.
That we talked about last week. I think last week's episode had the regional schedule that came out, so I'm excited.
Yeah.
Even though my local area, it's like 45 minutes to go to a card shop that plays. I can't do that.
I mean, look, you might get out there every now and again, right? Like you get like a random weekend. But
yeah.
Jake, are you ready?
Sean, the real question is, are you ready for Lost Origin? No, what do you mean you're not ready for Lost Origin?
Oh, I'm so ready.
Lost Origin is the newest Pokemon set release that releases later this week, September 9th. I will say, though, if they're doing the same thing as they've done in pretty much all sets since I've been a part of the Pokemon trading card game, card shops are probably already selling it right now, based on the pre-release stuff and things like that. So if you're listening to this and you want in on Lost Origin, which I think could be one of the most exciting sets of the Pokemon trading card game, at least in the modern era, make sure go to your local card shops, go to even your Targets, your Walmarts and stuff like that, put in those ETBs early. The ETB is sweet as well. We talked about it not too long ago, but it will become tournament legal on September 23rd, Sean. So I believe Baltimore this weekend or next weekend?
Baltimore is not, I don't think it's this weekend. I think it might be the weekend after.
Either way, Baltimore regionals, pretty sure, will not be legal of Lost Origin. So once you get the Lost Origin stuff, your cards, your packs, and things like that, and build your Lost Origin decks, for anyone who doesn't know, you have 2 weeks until they become legal in tournaments. So once we get to September 23rd, that'll be the first day of a regional or something like that, probably, if there is one, or a special event or a international championship, whatever. It will take over that. So, Sean, I gotta ask you. I ask you this every time when we start the set review.
Yeah.
What card do you want to start on first?
We usually go in the order of like the types, right? At least in the wonderful Poke Beach set, right?
Well, yeah, but we still got to choose which one we're going to talk about first.
Oh, right? Okay, fair. Let me scroll down. Let me scroll down and see, because I haven't. Just to be honest, I haven't actually looked at this. I haven't pre-looked at the set.
Well, yeah. Let's just say this: Sean has spent the last 2 weeks in Korea. If you've been listening to this podcast,
Korea and hiking,
and yeah, he went 3 days hugging a mountain. Try not to get eaten by bears. But Sean, let me help you out.
Please.
Let's start out going with Beautifly. So Beautifly is the first card I want to talk about today. This is a 130 HP grass Pokemon. It is a stage 2 for anyone who does not know. It evolves from Silcoon and Wurmple. Beautifly has the ability Elated Draw. Once during your turn, you may draw cards from your deck until you have 6 cards in your hand. So this is cool, Sean. We like Bibarel, right? Bibarel with the beaver ability. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but it allows you to draw up to 5 cards, right? Beautifly is 6. Now it is a stage 2, so it is a little bit different. And the Silcoon is not like a Drizzile to where it's actually important and useful. So probably a lot of times when you're using a Beautifly, if you want to get the Beautifly out, you're going to be using like rare candy,
Yeah.
right? You're going to be using rare candy, get that wormhole straight into a Beautifly. But I like this card, Sean. I don't know if it's really got a place. I don't know if it's really going to be good because all you have is like to find it, all you really have is the Evolution Incense and Ultra Ball,
Well, you have the
right?
stadium card that lets
Oh
you
yeah,
get
you have the
the
stadium as
grass.
well. I forgot
Yeah.
about that. Yeah, Turf Field Stadium.
Yeah.
You don't have several of these options for long,
No,
right? Once
that's
rotation
true.
hits in January, so now is probably the best time to use it. But yeah, that's what I would say about that. If you want to know about the Dust Tox, the counterpart, Sean, if you scroll down just a little bit more, colorless abyss power. Your opponent's X Pokemon is now confused and poisoned. During the checkup phase, put 8 damage counters on that Pokemon instead of 1. This is like how Galarian Wheezing works with the poison. So instead of 1 damage counter, you put on 8, which could be a little bit cheeky for your stall decks. But actually, with the options between Beautifly and Dust Tox for like a control deck, I mean, you get to draw a bunch of cards with Beautifly, right? You know, Beautifly allows you to draw all your cards from the deck, right? At a certain point, because 6 is a lot of cards, I feel like.
Yeah.
Dust Tox could be an option for just stalling out your opponent. You know, you gust them up, you confuse them, right? Maybe you poison them too. I don't know. Little cheeky, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, it's a stage 2, which is pretty slow.
Look,
For me, like the one thing I will say for me, I think this Beautifly, I am also a fan of meme decks a little bit. And if you think about it, Jake, there's a lot of cards now that let you draw cards, which
yeah.
it's pretty wild if you think so I see this Beautifly and I'm like, okay, can somebody make a Bibarel, Beautifly, Crobat deck and see like can you
Just want
draw
to deck yourself out
yeah.
turn 1.
How many cards can you draw in one turn if you
If
were to
you
build?
go second,
Yes, can you I just want somebody to build an oops all draw engine deck.
I was gonna say you could use Hisuian Decidueye V-Star, but that means that would be your second turn. That wouldn't be the first turn because it has the V-Star power of discarding your hand and drawing 7.
Well, you can't Bibarel and Beautifly anyways on your first turn, right?
Yeah, you can't do that anyway. So
It's second turn.
it can be in that deck.
Well, you can't do it all in the first, but you can. Just like if you build a deck that was like, how many cards can you draw as quickly as possible? I think it'd be kind of funny.
That's like when we had Dedenne and Crobat in the
Yes.
format, Dedenne GX and Crobat V. That was a wild time where ADP got to draw a ton of cards. But Sean, what do
Yep.
you want to talk about next?
I'm just scrolling down. A lot of the basic grass, like the single prizers, not that interesting. Except I think we'll stop on this Shiftry for a second.
I would love to talk about this Shiftry. Sean, tell me what this card does and why we're talking about it.
So the card, it is a basic. It's a stage 2, JK, stage 2. So probably less playable by that way, but it is one of the new Lost Zone cards. So for those that don't remember, the Lost Zone is kind of like this other area in the Pokemon TCG. It's not your deck. It's not your discard or anything. It's like out of the game. Once cards go there, they are never to return.
They're meant to die.
Exactly. So the first attack for 1 grass, 50 damage, and switch your opponent's active with one of their bench. I don't know. Situationally, it could be interesting. The second attack, though, is actually kind of interesting because it is 1 grass energy still, but it does 210 damage, and you put this Pokemon and all cards attached to it in the Lost Zone. And there are other cards in the set that do, I believe, more damage based on the number of cards you have in the Lost Zone, if I'm correct. So
Yeah.
this is a big card to be like, hey, like if you can do a bunch of damage, then this card, which if you've evolved it fully, right? Basic, stage 1, stage 2, plus the energy, that's 4 cards that you're putting into the Lost Zone to power up whatever's next.
And that doesn't even count like Choice Belt,
Yep.
right? If you attach a Choice Belt to it, if you attach some sort of special energy onto it. I don't know why you would, but maybe you do because you have to have a turn at least to power up the Nuzleaf,
You
right? You can
you
get an extra card attached to it.
you Leon maybe
Yeah, well,
30 more.
yeah, that's for the extra damage, not
Yeah.
necessarily for the lost zone, but yeah, this card, in my opinion, is really, really sweet. And if you're watching this on YouTube/Spotify, the video version of this podcast, you will notice throughout this entire episode, as we're talking about different cards, that the Lost Zone cards have this beautiful, cool design. Like when you pull a card and you're looking through your bulk pile, you will know exactly which cards interact with the Lost Zone because Pokemon has implemented this like spooky wave, like kind of smoky, colorful design,
Yeah.
like on the border of the art. And I believe we talked about it when Colress was announced.
I believe
I
so.
think-
We talked about it as well with a little bit of Giratina V-Star, which we'll get
Yeah.
to in a bit.
And so it's just like a really, really cool thing. And so this is the first one in the set list of, you know, a Lost Zone interaction, really. So it's I love this card, Sean.
Yeah, I think if they ever reprinted the doll cards, like the Lily's Polka Doll or, you know, Robo Substitute, which are cards that like don't give up prizes, basically, I think this is a cool card to consider comboing with because you could hit for a bunch of damage. It goes away, so your opponent doesn't have something in the... So you have to put something else in the active. You put something else that doesn't give up a prize card, and then unless your opponent has Gust, it's just they're wasting their turn again, and then, you know, you can kind of rinse and repeat a little bit.
A little bit, but
A
a
little
lot
bit.
of bit, Sean. And you know what? You can make the game go a lot of bit ways is Trevenant. Number 16. This is a stage 1 Pokemon evolving from Phantom, 120 HP grass Pokemon. It has an interesting ability, Old Tree Barrier. If this Pokemon is knocked out by damage from your opponent's Pokemon V's attack, your opponent does not take a prize. And in terms of attacking, it does have an attack, Grass, Colorless, Giga Impact for 150. This Pokemon can attack during your next turn. Trevenant cards are always really interesting, Sean, and this one is no different. It reminds me of Shedinja. You might remember that I love my Guru Shedinja days, and even though this is a little bit different than Shedinja, I'm still really excited about it.
Yeah, you might see people like... If I think for me, this card, I see this as like you build a whole deck of like a 4/4 line, a Phantom Trevenant, and the whole purpose of your deck is to never give up a prize card, or like effectively like what you're trying to do is cycle it so that you always have a bench full of mostly Trevenants and maybe a Phantom. And what you do is you force your opponent to use all of their gusting to grab the Phantoms before you evolve them.
Or like the support Pokemon that you have on the field.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, like, you know, hopefully you don't have too many support Pokemon, because the goal would be to like get them to use all of the gusting they may have in their deck, which most people are only running maybe 2 bosses orders, right now. So like, you know, you only have 2 gusts, and then if you're able to do this, and then things like, you know, Ordinary Rod, I believe, and you recycle in, or Clara, you know, other cards, you can get those cards back into your deck or into your hand so that you can kind of rinse and repeat. If you can do that, you know, consistently, which is hard because it, you know, it's not easy, but if you can do that consistently and also power up this Trevenant every turn almost, then
Gardenia.
Exactly.
Gardenia, Cherim.
Yeah, Cherim is a great example. So like you get them to use up all of their gusting, and then you bring the Cherim out, and then you can power things up, and they can't gust the Cherim anymore. So I think this is like a whole deck in and of itself. I don't know if it is consistent or good enough, because it doesn't really have, to the point we were talking about earlier, like it doesn't have an infinite loop like Shedinja Guru did.
Yeah, like the thing that made Shedinja good, right, was that you could guru all of these things inside of it. Like, yeah, it did take a couple more steps than what we were saying, because in Shedinja loop, like you would have to rotate turns between some supporters and Brock's Grit to really get back your Shedinja line, to get back your Gurus, things like that. You know, because Guru only got you back 3 cards from your discard pile into your deck, so you had to utilize Brock's Grit. But you know, it was still pretty decent, and it was still pretty good, and it was still a deck that I loved playing.
Yeah, and like, so the only downside again is this only stops V attacks. So what the problem with this one, we don't know what the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Actually, we do. They're not Pokemon Vs anymore. They're EX, right? Yeah. We do.
They're EXs.
So,
we talked about it a couple weeks ago.
So like,
it's been a while.
Yeah. If you want to play around with this card, do it now, because once EXs come out, this card is trash. It literally doesn't work anymore. It just, yeah.
For limited time, you can get this card for a good price. But Sean, let's move on to the next one. Let's go into the fire Pokemon now. We got Macargo, right? This is the next Pokemon that interacts with the Lost Zone in the set. 130 HP. Oops, sorry. Stage 1 fire Pokemon. First attack, fire, 30 damage. Black, gross, bad. Second attack, arguably not necessarily bad, but I think these Lost Zone attacks are all interesting in their own right. For fire, colorless, abysmal volcano, 220 damage. Put all energy attached to this Pokemon in the Lost Zone. So, the thing that I like about these Pokemon, Sean, these Lost Zone Pokemon, is they have realistic attack costs, right? 2 or 3 energies is not like an out of the realm, you know, absurd attack cost for 220 damage. I feel like, you know, Shiftry doing the 210 damage, right? Yeah. For 1 energy, that's a little bit more extreme though. 200. What if you did Shiftry and Trevenant?
I mean, yeah, that is a strategy.
Oh, that would be cool. Anyways, let's keep talking about Macargo. Abysmal Volcano. I mean, you're doing 220 damage, which is a hefty amount of damage, right? They're almost knocking out Vs or V stars with their attacks. They're definitely like knocking out Vs, but V stars, they're at least putting a good chunk of damage, and then putting the energy in the Lost Zone, which will talk about interactions of that later. So I think it's cool to mention these like Lost Zone Pokemon, even if they're not the greatest.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough one because you're putting all of this, like, you're putting all this energy, like with Shiftry, there's only 1 energy that goes into the Lost Zone. And you have to think about your deck, I think, as like, typically the decks that have performed the best throughout time have actually like weirdly low energy counts, because that opens up space for like all of these other cards. You have tech card options, and so decks that would require you to like put extra energy in just to throw them away. The only decks I can remember that did a lot of that would be decks like Blacephalon and, you know, Firebox decks.
Yeah, towards right. Firebox deck is like the first one that I think of, because he had like what, 18 energies or something like that, and people lost their minds. They were like, what is this, a theme deck?
But like, you know, it's a lot of energy, but like the benefit of that is like every time you use an attack, you usually got a KO instantly, and also you can get the energy back. You can't with this. So this is why I'm like, this card, I agree, it's interesting to touch on it, but this one might not see as much play, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. It probably won't see as much play. But what card do you think maybe could see some play, Sean?
I mean, I don't know. Look, I'll mention Chandelure briefly. For the Mill fans out there, the ability, when you play this card from your hand to evolve a Pokemon, you may discard the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. The benefit here is we have to remember there is a Lampent still in Standard that if you draw it from the top of your deck to start your turn, you can put it directly onto the battlefield, right?
Yes.
And I don't think you can evolve it that same turn. You would still have to wait 1 turn.
Yes, yeah. I believe so, because it's not the checkup phase. It's the start of your turn when you draw the card.
Yeah. So, look, this is like, because we have 2 cards that could interact in that way, like you can get a free play of a stage 1 and then go into the stage 2 the following turn.
We
You
do
don't.
have Guru.
You do have Guru. There's stuff, right? So maybe there's a world in which like a Sander, right, or somebody figures out how to break this card. I don't think it's broken because it is a stage 2. It requires lots of other stuff, but you never know. Just an honorable mention of a card there.
We will talk a little bit about Delphox V, our first ultra rare Pokemon that we're talking about here on this podcast today. 210 HP basic Pokemon, fire type. It is, if you can't tell from the video, a Lost Zone Pokemon. So awesome to see an ultra rare V getting some Lost Zone interactions. First attack, fire, spooky torch. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now burned and confused. The second attack, fire, colorless, magical fire, 120 damage. Put 2 energy cards attached to this Pokemon in the Lost Zone. This attack also does 120 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So this is pretty much Rapid Strike Urshifu, Sean. 120, I mean, you have to go to the active in comparison to Rapid Strike Urshifu, but 120 and 120 on the bench. So very, very cool in my opinion. Again, 3 energies is not the most out of the realm ordinary attack. You know, attach Raihan, Magma Basin, right? We've seen it in other decks do that same thing. So this is kind of that same spot.
I mean,
I like it.
Yeah, this one comes down to what does the math look like, right? If you're playing, because I think for this one you have to play, I would say a primarily fire-based deck because of the amount of fire energy you would need in the deck for this to work because you're lost zoning energy. So I think this one depends on like, does the math of the 120 placement, usually 120 to 2 Pokemon is a pretty good, that's a high number. Like you're active and
especially because you can have like choice belts and stuff like that too for 150 to the active at least.
That's exactly right. So like, you know, I think this one becomes like, what can you combo this card with to do some cleanup damage? I don't know if there is something, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but like could be an interesting card. I think on its own, I don't think it is the star of a deck. I don't personally think you'll see a Delphox V deck the same way that you see, because Rapid Strike Urshifu has the benefit of the Rapid Strike energy doesn't go away, and it's a beefier Pokemon.
I mean, it kind of goes away, the Rapid Strike energy.
Kind of, but like also Rapid Strike Urshifu is a big Pokemon, right? So it's probably not getting knocked out, but Delphox V is almost certainly getting knocked out in response. So I don't know who the partner with this guy is yet.
The first one I think of is Arceus V-Star, to be honest. I mean, we saw for a while a good Arceus V-Star Charizard VMAX deck, right? I kind of see the same way. You know, you attack with the Arceus V-Star, right? You use the 210 or the 180 or 200, depending on your damage modifiers that you have on the Arceus. You put a lot of damage onto a V-Star or V-Max Pokemon, if we're talking about the Flying Pikachu or whatever, and then you come in with Delphox, right? You clean up and you do setup damage to another Pokemon in the following turn, because Arceus, you know, 180 to 210, right, in terms of damage, or 230 even, you know, if they don't use the double turbo energy, you have 120 at least coming after that. So that's where I see Delphox fitting in decks, is in that sort of spot, and that can help you not only with the energy acceleration, right? We've seen Arceus power up plenty of 3 energy Pokemon, but also could help you prepare, you know, for getting them in the Lost Zone or whatever. And plus, like, you're pulling those energies out of the deck, right? So if you're running kind of a lower energy count, Arceus can still get you those energies because Arceus V-Star is so good.
That's a good point. And like, I think the benefit of this one is also because you're running fire energies in the deck, you have access now to Radiant Charizard, which we saw how powerful that can be as like, especially like, I mean, people were using it early game, but especially as like a late game card. If you can have cards that cycle it, that does make sense, actually. That's a nice like combo. And with EXs coming out, those numbers are gonna. I think that 120 might be just enough to knock out those big, EX Pokemon.
Yeah, I think Delphox, in my opinion, like we didn't make a buy list or anything
No.
like that, but I would take a hold of these Delphox Vs, get your Delphox Vs now. But Sean, what else should people look out for?
I mean, I don't think Burn is particularly amazing.
Pyroar, I will say, with the ability to put 4 damage counters for Burn instead of 2. Okay.
Yeah, like, look, if there becomes a Burn deck, this is like Toxicroak. If you remember the old Eternatus VMAX deck.
But, like, the thing with Toxicroak is Toxicroak stacks.
Yeah.
Oh,
this does.
It does?
Oh, no, it says put 4 instead of 2. It doesn't say
so
double.
it's not like it doesn't say add 2.
Yeah,
it just says put 2. So it's silly. It's silly, Sean, I will say.
Yeah, I'm looking through this here.
Sean, jump over to Kingdra. Kingdra, 150 HP water Pokemon. It's a stage 2, evolving from Seadra and Horsey. It has the ability Surging Current. Once during your turn, you may choose either you or your Pokemon. That player shuffles their hand and puts it at the bottom of their deck, then draws 4 cards. Sean, this Kingdra has the choice of who gets Marnied. And it's just one person. This is a really interesting choice of an ability to put on a Pokemon, in my opinion. I mean, forget about the attack. Water colorless, Hydro Splash, 130 damage. Forget it. I just want to talk about the ability.
It is an interesting ability. Again, it's like, it's a stage 2, so you're just sort of like, are we ever going to see anybody use this? Maybe.
But one of the things as well is, we've talked about some of these stage 2 Pokemon, and it's like, the Chandelure is like, when you put this Pokemon from your hand to evolve. Yeah. This is every single your turn. This is every single your turn.
That is
when this Pokemon is out on the field.
And for players out there who have experienced Marnie and all of its pain, like the ability, like you would look at this Kingdra and you're like, am I really gonna waste a Gust in order to knock out a 1-price Kingdra? Probably not. But like then if your opponent basically has a free Marnie every turn for themselves or you, doesn't matter, right? But like probably against you, you're just sitting there like, oh, this feels so bad. My hand is always going away.
And truthfully, I'm not 100% sure what deck this will fit in, what archetype, but reminder that we have Irida in this format. And remember how impactful Irida has been for Palkia decks, right? Water-based decks. Irida allows you to grab a water Pokemon and an item card. Kingdra Rare Candy.
That is a very good point, Jake. That is, and actually the interesting thing there, you could Kingdra Rare Candy, and I like how they give you the option then to do it to yourself, because then you can shuffle your own hand and draw another 4. So like if you are
it's effectively 2 supporters.
Yeah, that's actually, I did not think about that. So that Irida, it almost is like it makes up for the fact that you're using your supporter to get this set up. But then if you have the Palkia, if you have enough things in your hand that all you need is like one other card, and you have like Capacious Buckets to find your waters, you have Ultra Balls or Evolution Instants to find your V-Stars.
you have your V-Star power to put your energies on. Like,
honestly, Jake, I think you have found the home for this card here.
Look. I'm not going to sit here and say that this Kingdra is filthy busted broken. It's going to be in the next World Championship deck, right? It's going to win the next regional, the first one that it's legal in. But I think that out of, Lost Origin, the set, I think this is a card that not a lot of people are talking about, and I just think is really, really cool.
Yeah,
it's put it in a position, like I think any other set and any other, like, what am I thinking of? Era, meta format?
Yeah.
Thank you. I think in like any other format, this card is whatever. It's a bulk card, we put it away. But I think with the stuff that's currently out and the stuff that has come out recently, like this Kingdra's in a cool spot, in my opinion.
I like that. Yeah. If you're playing Palkia right now and you want to keep playing it post Lost Zone, at least play around with it. Play around with the Kingdra line and the Irida combo that Jake mentioned. I like that.
Especially when Drizzile rotates.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, could this be a big help when Drizzile rotates? I don't know. But it also, well, it does say once during your turn. It doesn't say, you know, like it. I was thinking like, what if you use multiple Kingdras in a single turn?
I think
For like, do it for you and your opponent. But I don't. Can you do it in this?
I don't know, because it doesn't say you can only use one Surging Current ability. But
Yeah, but
maybe
it
that
just
would be
says,
a
I
ruling
don't
of
know.
one yeah, that's a good
I
judge
really think you'd
question.
want to do it more than that. I don't think you'd want to do it more than once anyways.
No,
But
probably
that's just me. But Sean,
Yeah.
do you know the next card that you want to talk about?
You know what? I'm gonna go with Finian right here. So
Yeah.
I think this Finian, I just looked at it and I'm like, maybe I got something. Oh, nope, JK. I read the ability and I'm like, wait, attach a water energy to one of your Pokemon that has this swim freely. JK, moving on.
I will say though, that was one of the pre-release cards, Sean, and
Okay.
there's a couple Pokemon in here that have the swim freely attack. I will mention the Dugong, which we didn't
Okay.
really talk about. We passed by the Seadra that evolves into the Kingdra, which we were talking about rare candy to skip the Seadra, so
Yeah.
that's a little bit unfortunate. And then last one is Luminion. Luminion, 10 damage, flip a coin, prevent all effects of attacks done to this Pokemon during your opponent's next turn. I think I'd rather play Ambipom. So,
Yeah.
unfortunate, but we move on, Sean. We move on. Let's talk a little bit about Hisuian Basculegion, because I think this is like our first Basculegion card. I think.
Basculegion or Basculin?
Oh, this is Hisuian. I think that's a typo.
Oh, okay.
Because this
Could be
is on the
Basculegion.
picture on PokeBeach. This might be a thing where PokeBeach just finds out if you've copied and pasted. This is definitely Basculegion
Okay.
on the cover. Evolves from Hisuian Basculin. Its first attack for no cost to you at all. Spear climb 20 times damage. This attack does 20 damage for each basic energy card in your discard pile. Then shuffle those cards into your deck. A free attack. All you have to do is evolve, which, by the way, you can constantly do this with Zoroark. But it kind of reminds me of the Victini Prism Star.
Yeah. And the nice thing
I think
about
it's
this,
literally the same thing, except not a basic Pokemon.
yeah, it's not a basic, but it also doesn't have any energy cost, right? So like with Victini
Which I
Prism,
believe Victini was too.
it was. You had to welder if you wanted to pull it off in one turn, which also meant with that Victini, you had to always count your energy to make sure that you still had 2 left in the deck if you wanted maximum value. But with this, doesn't matter if there's any energy left in your deck. You use the attack, you shuffle it all back in. You know, Bob's your uncle.
Bob's your uncle.
Yeah, you know. But I also like that this does not specify water energy. Important to note, it is a water Pokemon, but it just says basic energy. So this card, I could see it if you're running, if there ever is another like high energy count deck that isn't lost zoning its energy, I'll say. Yeah, like this is a really good partner to be like, you know, if you throw a 1/1 copy in here late game, and then you can pull this attack off for no energy. The one question I would have about 20x is that enough damage these days? Because with Victini Prism Star, it was a lot of effort to do a one-hit knockout, and that was 3 years ago when the biggest things in the format were like 270 HP, basically.
Yeah.
And now, especially with those stage 2 EXs we see coming with 330, and that's still only giving up 2 prizes. It's not a 3-prizer. I don't know how easy it's going to be to hit those numbers for those knockouts at a 20x. So that's the one thing I could see holding this card back.
It'll be interesting to see what it does. But Sean, we do have a 3-star Pokemon, 3-star.
3 prize.
I mean, it's basically 3 stars. 3 prize Pokemon that we can talk about. Kyurem VMAX, our first 3 prize Pokemon in this set list that we're talking about. It evolves from Kyurem V, 330 HP. ability with Ice World. Once during your turn, you may discard the top card of your deck. If it's a water energy, attach it to one of your Pokemon. So I talked about Oranguru at least for a little bit in the earlier in the podcast. Oranguru can help you out with this to get a free attachment on here. Its attack is water, water, water. Just 3 waters. Max Frost. 120 plus damage. Discard any number of water energy from this Pokemon. This attack does 50 more damage for each energy card discarded in this way. Now, there's no max to this attack. It is uncapped. Not only do you have Ice World the ability, but you still have Frostmoth in the format to be able to power you up. You still have the Drizzile engine to power you up. You still have Raihan as well to power you up.
And these abilities, I'm pretty sure they do stack.
Yes.
So if
so you
3 or
could
4
like Shadow Rider it.
Yeah.
You could Shadow Rider it and just discard your entire deck, basically. Well, at least 4. At most 4, I should say, and hopefully attach some water energies. It does say if it's a water energy, attach it to one of your Pokemon. So what I'm trying to get at is you have to attach it.
Yes.
Right? It's not a you may kind of thing, or you can. It is a you have to, because that's public knowledge, that card hitting your discard pile. So a little bit different, but...
I like this though. I'm thinking about because Palkia, I don't think it's a partner for Palkia necessarily because it does seem to want to do different things. Mm-hmm. But with Palkia, the reason that Palkia was so takedownable by one deck is because it had that lightning weakness, and there was a lightning card in the format that was good. I don't know if there's a metal. If there's really because this one's weak to metal, so I don't know, this one could be an interesting alternative if you want to play a water deck, and not worry about weakness.
The thing that I would say about that is, Dialga V-Star, we talked about it on the podcast. Frank Persick hyped up, Dialga. Yeah, we did too. Sean did at least. Hyped up Dialga V-Star, and I think it would kind of be that same thing, People didn't hype up Flying Pikachu until it started popping up in events and Azul won with it and stuff. Or I think Azul took it to a tournament first and then won with it at NAIC and then, Worlds, which we talked about it plenty of. But I think it would kind of be that same thing to where if Kyurem did become in the meta and all Palkia decks just started playing a 2/2 line of Kyurem VMAX, or Kyurem VMAX became its own deck, then sure, counters would come up with Dialga V-Star, It would be kind of that meta shift type of deal.
I do like this. I don't know. I'm thinking about this and I'm it's maybe more similar to Blacephalon GX in some ways. Mm-hmm. Now it's very different in a lot of ways, but
it's very different in the effect that these are just going to the discard pile instead of which you could combo this with Basculegion.
You could, yeah.
Oh my goodness, Sean!
There is something, I don't know. There's something to this deck. I don't know if it's quite enough, but it definitely does more damage for the amount of energy attached to it than Lapras VMAX. And I know that card early on in the Sword and Shield world.
People love that card.
Yeah, that was an interesting deck, people, but it was just not powerful enough. But I think this is maybe the more powerful version. So I don't know if that was a style of play that you really liked. I think Kyurem VMAX is your shot.
It'll be interesting, and I think it's going to be one of the cheaper VMAXs.
Yeah.
To be able to play. But Sean, do you want to talk about the next one?
Yeah, it's Cramorant. It's another Lost Zone card here. Ability, Lost Supply. If you have 4 or more cards in your Lost Zone, ignore all energy in this Pokemon's cost. So, if you're playing a Lost Zone deck, it's pretty easy to have that. And then you get basically a free attack to do 110 damage that isn't affected by weakness. Now, I think the only benefit of this is if you need something to come in as a 1 prizer and just poke a little 110, that's what this card is it's a perfect one of in a deck.
And and also like it has to be a Lost Zone deck.
Yeah. If it's not a Lost Zone deck,
It has to be. It has to be a Lost Zone deck. So yeah, I mean, it's okay.
It's interesting. I don't know.
It's cool.
I like it. Look, it's also like if there is ever decks that like that are trying to wall you out. I'm thinking of like Mill Tank, right? And you're like, well, once I get the cards in the Lost Zone, I have 110 damage. Like, how much does Mill Tank like? Is that enough to kill a Mill Tank? You think, or is a Mill Tank a little beefier?
Well, I mean, Milk Tank also plays not Choice Belt, Big Charm.
Okay, so
it's a little
bigger.
tougher, but the Miracle Body Milk Tank, the basic one, does have 110 base HP.
Well, so you throw a Tool Jammer on this bad boy.
Yeah, put Tool Scrappers back in your deck, people. I keep talking about that card, and we gotta do it sometime, right?
It's gonna rotate soon.
I know. I don't have much longer to hype up Tool Scrapper.
But I like this. If you're playing a Lost Zone deck, and Mill Tank is gonna probably be around because that deck is not bad. It's not a bad card. It's 110. They've clearly made you a one of that can just poke all the annoying bits out too. Anyways, Jake, what's the next card? I will say,
I kind of want to talk about the Raichu down here. Lightning Pokemon, 120 HP, Stage 1, evolves from Pikachu. It's got 2 attacks, one being colorless, or I'm sorry, not colorless. A lightning energy cost, 30 damage, flip a coin. If heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. Okay, and then lightning colorless. This is what I want to talk about, because this is the first time I've seen something like this. Trump Spark, 100 plus damage. If you've used your V-Star power, this attack does 120 more damage. Now, it's not necessarily, the best attack, in terms of cost, damage, output, stuff like that. But I think it's interesting because this is the first time I've seen a card be like, if you've used your V-Max attack, or I'm sorry, your GX attack, or your V-Star power, you get more or some sort of interaction with that. So I just think that's a really cool thing to note about it. And
I think there might have been a card way back in like 2019 that was like your opponent can't use their GX attack for the rest of the game.
Oh yeah, that was the Latios GX.
Maybe or no, I don't know.
Yeah, that was Latios GX. Because I played it in decks.
Okay. Yeah. I was trying to. Yeah. So there are things that have interacted, I guess, but like this one is interesting because it's trying to remember the past game state instead of predicting future or dictating.
Yeah, and it's not like Pokemon Ranger, right?
Yeah.
And expanded, playing against ADP where you nullify that extra prize of effect. This is just like a hey, you used it. Cool.
Good job.
It's cool in my opinion. It's a cool interaction. But Sean, what else has cool interactions, you think?
I mean, we could probably just skip down to the Magnezone. I don't think there's anything else.
Yeah, I like Magnezone.
Yeah. So, I mean, I will say briefly on the Magnezone V, it does have a gusting attack. For one lightning, one colorless. Switch your opponent's bench with one of their bench with their active, and you do 40 damage to it. So it's like one of those I think they're like drag up or drag off type abilities or attacks that cards have had in the past. So, depending on what you're playing against, it can be an interesting way to get a little bit of setup damage in. But other than that, you have Magnet Grip on the V-Star, 270 HP V-Star. It does lightning, colorless, 180. Search your deck for 2 item cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, and then shuffle your deck. That's actually pretty good. 180 damage, which is a decent amount. It's 2-shotting. And you get to search your deck for 2 item cards, which, I don't know exactly what item cards you really want to grab with this. I'm not sure yet.
Probably just a bunch of setup cards. Or you could grab things like cross switchers. Yeah. Or something like that, you know, to be able to gust up your Pokemon.
Yeah. So, because I also think about maybe an expanded, this might be pretty good because you can go grab Electro Powers, but I don't know. I could be wrong.
I don't know.
That may not matter in expanded.
Yeah, I don't know. I think expanded might just be a little bit too fast for this guy.
Yeah.
And plus, like if it was like a V-Star power, grab 2 items from your deck, maybe then. But you're using an attack and then grabbing the electro powers, and you can't use it until your next turn. And it's
Yeah.
expanded, Sean. This Pokemon is getting knocked out.
It's done so. That's fair. And then the V-Star power is an attack. 2 lightning, does 90 damage to 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. There is the and it doesn't specify V or V-Star. There is the tool card that will do an extra, what is it? 30?
30.
Yeah, so
you do 120.
120 to 2, that could, in certain games that could take you maybe 4 prizes. I guess there's theoretically 6 prizes, but I don't know what has 2 V maxes on the bench that have that much damage, but
cure them.
Yeah, maybe. But like, it's interesting snipe damage. I don't know. I think for me, this is a middling card. I could be very wrong here. What do you think, Jake?
I think it's fine. I mean, it's cool. It's really, really cool. And the lightning being lightning colorless allows you to also not only power it up in a single turn with double turbo energy, but it gives you a little bit of options in terms of different Pokemon that are attacking. Yeah. So and plus, like, getting 2 item cards, especially like early to mid game, can be really, really good in helping you set up the rest of your board state and put you in a much better position for the late game or following turns, things like that. So long as you don't get like Marnied or anything like that.
Or Roxanne or
Roxanne.
That's always the issue with some of these type of attacks, which is like they're great in theory, but as long as you have hand disruption supporters on the other side, they're always going to like minimize the value of this card.
Mm-hmm.
But Jake, you know what I'm looking at.
You're looking at the Rotom. I think we've talked about this Rotom before on the podcast, so we won't spend too much time on it. It's a basic 190 HP lightning Pokemon V with the ability Instant Generator. Once during your turn, you may draw 3 cards. If you use this ability, your turn ends. It also has lightning attack, Scrappy Short Circuit, 40 plus damage. You may put any number of Pokemon tool cards from your discard pile into the Lost Zone. This attack does 40 more damage for each card put into the Lost Zone this way. Cool, Sean. I mean, Rotom always interacts with the Lost Zone, and so here it is again.
I mean, look, I would say, like, I don't know how powerful this deck is, because, like, you can power this up in 1 turn. Attach Raihan. You can get some speed lightning energy onto this, draw some extra cards. And it has the ability like Zacian V, right? A lot of people use Zacian not necessarily to power up their Pokemon, but just to draw cards on turn 1. So, like, it's also good at preventing you from having a really bricked hand super early.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of benefits here. The problem with putting all of those Pokemon tool cards from your discard pile into the Lost Zone, you need to play a bunch of tools. And then you need to put them all into the Lost Zone, which means you can't really do this attack for a lot of damage more than like once in a game, maybe twice.
Yeah, because remember that the more tool cards that you're putting into your deck, the less of like consistency cards you're putting into your deck. You know, your Ultra Balls, your research, things like that. Like, it's a mixed bag of nuts, I would say, in this deck.
Yeah, I'm just not sure about it. Like, the only deck, I don't know, maybe it goes in other decks. Like, it's a good attack if you want to get a bunch of cards into the Lost Zone for another Pokemon to attack with or whatever. And, like, this can do it really quick, but again, you're filling your deck up with tool cards then, and, like, that's just not great.
I will say, what else is not great, Sean? Electrike, 80 HP, Stage 1 Pokemon evolving from Dynamo ability, Emergent Shock. Once during your turn, when you play this card from your hand to evolve a Pokemon, you may flip a coin if head your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. Shock Lock is maybe coming back.
But, like, you have to flip
standard.
a coin. You have to flip a coin.
I mean, there's that one card, the Stadium, that allows you to Oh no, it doesn't. I thought
it's
it
only
allowed
for
you.
attacks.
Oh, never mind. Never
Yeah,
mind.
this card is
Anyways, Sean,
butt.
let's move on to Clefairy because I think Clefairy is actually a really, really cool card. Sean, 60 HP, basic Pokemon, psychic Pokemon with the ability Moon Watching. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may search your deck for a psychic energy and attach it to each of your bench Clefairy.
Oh.
Then shuffle your deck. Very, very cool. The Clefairies teaming up. Colorless, colorless, colorless is the attack on this Pokemon. Wonderstorm, 20 times damage. Attack does 20 damage for each psychic energy attached to your Pokemon. And so, Sean, this is search your deck, right?
Uh-huh.
Clefairy, you could escape rope. Clefairy, you could do the old switch card. Clefairy, you could use the air balloon. Clefairy.
Yeah. 'Cause
Lot
it
of
does have,
Clefairy action going on.
there is, and then you got Scoop Up Net.
Yeah.
More Clefairy.
If you want to. Clefairy.
Yeah.
And then you can also evolve it into a stage 1 Clefable. All of your Pokemon take 30 less damage from attacks from your Pokemon's end Pokemon?
From your
What does
opponents.
that mean?
I don't know what
Is that
end
a type?
means.
I don't know what that means, actually.
Yeah, is
Dragon.
end dragon?
It looks like dragon.
That's
Yeah, it looks
very
like dragon
specific.
because I'm looking at the card. Okay, very cool. You can't apply more than one soul protection at a time. Psychic colorless, colorless moon impact 90 damage. Disregard the Clefable. We're making a Clefairy only deck, Sean,
Maybe.
to pump out that damage.
Again, though, this is a 20 times multiplier. And a 20 times multiplier.
Yeah, but like you do the 20 times multiplier, and you know what? You do Clefairy 800 times. And you're stacking it up.
Yeah, that's big
And
damage.
this is also psychic type energy,
Yeah.
right? So like this could be a Pokemon that, well, I highly doubt you'd be able to figure it out with like Soul Rock Lunatone as a different option to attack. But like Shadow Rider, right? Shadow Rider could combo this and use this little guy as a one prize Pokemon.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just like Clefairy. I like throwing energies everywhere on the board at all points in the game. But Sean, what else do you like doing?
I mean, I'll just mention this Gengar. It's one of the cards that's in the pre-release, I believe. So ability creeping back. Once during your turn, you can put this card from your discard pile onto your bench. If you do, put 3 damage counters on this Pokemon. And then its attack for 1 psychic, put 2 damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon for each of their bench Pokemon. So they have 5 bench Pokemon, you're putting 10 damage counters. This can come out of nowhere, right? You can Ultra Ball it away, and then immediately bring it back, attach a Psychic Energy, and then get it into the active, put 10 damage counters. That would get around any sort of damage negation stuff or any of that. And 10 damage counters is quite a lot. So, I don't know. I don't know ultimately like how good this card is, but I do like that it can kind of... it is a come out of nowhere card for 1 energy that is a single prizer, and I do like that. So, honorable mention with this one.
I agree. I think it's pretty fair in terms of a Pokemon. And if we keep going down, Sean, let's maybe go into... Do you want to go to Banette?
Sure.
Or, I'm sorry, Gardevoir. Gardevoir, yeah.
Yeah,
No, Radiant Gardevoir.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I scrolled down too far. This is our first Radiant Pokemon of the set. Psychic, a basic Pokemon, 130 HP. Reminder, you can have no more than 1 Radiant Pokemon in your deck. It has the ability Devotion Veil. Your Pokemon take 20 less damage from your opponent Pokemon V's attacks. Psychic, colorless, colorless. Psychic, 70 plus damage. This attack does 20 more damage for each energy card attached to your opponent's Pokemon. So a little cheeky. I don't know. I mean, the 20 could have some decent math, right? We've seen Hawlucha add more damage to Pokemon VMAX. Now we're seeing Pokemon, Radiant Pokemon take away damage from them. And, 20 could make all the difference in a battle.
Yeah, like I don't know if this card is coming up, but like I know that the Goodra V-Star or something like that. Like if you're going with a tanking strategy, this might be the Radiant Pokemon you pick if you want to throw one in. Yeah, could be interesting.
Would be interesting, but we got to talk about other things, Sean.
We do. This Sableye real quick. Sableye, Lost Mine, 1 Psychic. It is a basic Lost Zone Pokemon. You may use this deck only if you have 10 cards or more in the Lost Zone, which is quite a lot. Put 12 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon and end play in any way you like. We talked about how good this Espeon and Deoxys basically like GX attack for 1 energy is. It does require a lot of Lost Zone support, but the benefit is once you meet that 12 damage counter spread any way you like, you've got to imagine, like, if you have been able to set up like 2 or 3 Pokemon on your opponent's side, like do a little damage here, a little damage there, and then all you have left to do is you can just do 2 or 3 of these Sableyes in a row. Damage counter prevention is, there's not a lot out there that stops damage counter prevention.
All there is that one umbrella, yeah.
Right.
Tool card.
So, like, unless people are going to start playing that umbrella, which it's unlikely, this is, like, a really good way. There used to be, like, a Weezing deck that was, like, a spread deck, and I could see this being that deck now. Like, as a single prizer, you set a bunch of stuff up, and then you go a couple of turns with this Sableye, and you take all your prizes in, like, 1 turn, basically, or 2 turns.
It'll be interesting. I will say Sableye is the coolest looking Lost Zone Pokemon. I think it fits the Pokemon super, super well. Not in terms of just the colors, but also the art style as well. Shibuzo? Hopefully I said that correctly. Probably not. But anyway, Sean, let's talk about the next Pokemon. Which one do you want to talk about? Do you want to keep going, or?
I mean, we got Banette, right? We could. Do you think there's anything interesting with this Banette?
Banette, with the ability, once during your turn, you may choose a supporter card from your discard pile, reveal it, and put it in your hand. If you do, put this Pokemon in the Lost Zone. Especially since it evolves from Shuppet, it can help you get more Pokemon in the Lost Zone for Sableye's attack, while also being kind of like a Versus Seeker as well. And we know how cool that card is with that and Eldegoss both seeing play at different times in the last couple of years.
It is, I will say, this is kind of nice because you think about support Pokemon, right? Like Luminion going and getting a supporter from the deck, or Eldegoss going and getting it from the discard. The problem with those support Pokemon is you put them down onto the field, they do their thing, and then they're sat there. They take up a bench spot, which this one is nice because, you know, it's a choose. You don't have to use it when you evolve it. But when you do use it, it clears space for more Pokemon. So, I don't know. Very specific deck, but could be interesting.
Very interesting. Like Comfey is also very interesting, Sean. 70 HP basic Pokemon with the ability Flower Picking. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon's in the active spot, you may look at the top 2 cards of your deck and put one of them in your hand. Put the other in the Lost Zone. Very, very cool. It's like Jirachi, but Lost Zone.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting.
The amazing rare Jirachi saying, look at the 2 cards, take one and put the other one. Is it on the top or the bottom?
On the top.
I can't remember.
On the top.
But this one says, forget the top of your deck, go to the Lost Zone, which I think is a nice little interaction.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so many cards in these sets, Jake.
I know.
Enamorous.
I'm trying to like hurry it up.
I know. Enamorous V ability. It's another V card. Guardian of Love. As long as this Pokemon is in the active, prevent all effects of your opponent's Pokemon's abilities done to your Pokemon with any psychic energy attached, except any Enamorous V. And then does the attack matter? Okay, you attach 2
damage.
basic.
Attach up to 2 basic energy cards from your discard pile to your Pokemon in any way you'd like.
It's fine. I don't know. Unless there is some crazy ability that is messing with your Pokemon, this one seems pretty weak.
Yeah, I would say let's move on to the next card, Sean. Let's go to Hisuian Arcanine real quick. Just want to talk about this stage 1, 130 HP fighting Pokemon. For free, no energy cost, 10 plus damage. If you have no cards in your hand, this attack does 150 more damage. So Granbull is back, Sean. I believe Granbull had the same effect. People really, really liked Granbull as a deck. That was a stage 1 fairy Pokemon. This being a stage 1 fighting Pokemon, right? Perfect for the format. Whacking on the Arceus V-Stars. with 160, right, base damage if you have no cards in your hand, that's pretty, I mean, that knocks out the
320.
Arceus, so
Yeah.
on weakness. So could be interesting. Might want to keep your eye on it, Sean, but what else should you keep your eye on in this set?
I mean, look, the Machamp stage 2. If your opponent has 3 or fewer prize cards, it gets plus 150, 300 HP. I don't think it's a great Pokemon, but like, it's an interesting ability. But I think we could skip right down to that Aerodactyl V.
The Aerodactyl, we've talked about this because I think this is the most obscure attack ever in the history of the Pokemon trading card game. But first, it's a V-Star fighting Pokemon, 260 HP, evolves from Aerodactyl V. The first attack, fighting colorless, Lost Dive, 240 damage. Put the top 3 cards of your deck in the Lost Zone, Sean. So hopefully they're not important cards. But the V-Star power for 1 colorless cost. As this Pokemon is in play, it gains an ability with the effect. Your opponent's Pokemon V in play, excluding any Aerodactyl V-Star, have no abilities. You can't use more than 1 V-Star power in a game. So you can put this guy down, right? You put this guy down, you have an energy attached to it, and you say, okay, you don't have any V-Star abilities, right?
Yeah.
You cannot use Arceus V-Star's ability. You can't use Hisuian Decidueye's V-Star power ability. You can't use Palkia's V-Star power ability.
You also
so long
can't use
as this
Crobat.
Pokemon is in play.
You also can't use Crobat or Luminion.
Yeah, you can't use Crobat to draw cards. You can't use Luminion. So it's interesting, and yeah, and this says as this Pokemon is in play. So I think it's like this Aerodactyl V-Star. So you can't just have like 2 on the field and be like, ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
You know, it has to be that one, I believe. So I don't know if it's going to be good. I don't know if it's going to be played. It's cheeky as heck, I'll say.
Yeah.
And I'm still baffled by, you know, whoever thought of this really like was someone said make a unique V-Star power, and they said bet.
Yeah, it is interesting. They chose to make this an attack, so you have to use this attack, and then it has to be in the active. So your opponent has 1 turn to knock it out. Effectively.
No, it doesn't have to be in the active. It just has to be in play.
Well, but it has to be in the active to use the attack.
Oh, but okay, yeah. Now I know what you mean.
So,
Sorry.
So it's like a weird, like, if your opponent can immediately knock it out, then it's kind of like you've wasted everything. But you know, it depends. It just depends. I could be strong in certain archetypes, I think.
Could be really interesting, as well as this Barbaracle, 130 HP stage 1 Pokemon. It's a Lost Zone Pokemon. It's got the ability Lost Block. As long as this Pokemon is in play, your opponent puts any prize cards they would take in the Lost Zone instead of putting those cards into their hand. Kind of cool, kind of interesting. I don't know if it's really great, but I don't know. It's an interesting interaction with your prize cards that I don't know if we've really seen. I think the only other time that I can remember, at least as of late, since we started playing, is Blacephalon GX with that GX attack.
Yeah.
If it was Blastbird, I think it was, or something like that. Whatever it was. But it interacts with your opponent's prize cards too, which is cool.
Yeah, no, it is interesting because it's like if you can lock your opponent's hand down, that was always the problem, right? If you lock your opponent's hand, but then they take a prize, maybe they draw a research or whatever. Kind of interesting. I guess the next one, there is another Stonejourner attached to fighting energy from your hand to your Pokemon in play. 120, put the top card of your opponent's deck in the Lost Zone. I don't know. It's so much energy. Yeah.
Moving on.
Moving on, indeed.
Moving on to the Mew Killer, as everyone's screaming and yelling about. Drapion V. Don't worry about its V-Star, because all you need is the V. The V, 210 HP Darkness basic Pokemon. The ability Wild Style. This Pokemon's attacks are colorless less for each of your opponent's Single Strike, Rapid Strike, and Fusion Strike Pokemon in play. And with attack that is 4 colorless energies, Mew is going to fill that void for a free 190 damage, doing 60 damage to yourself. But that's fine if you're trading 3 prizes to your
One.
Well, 2. I mean, but you're not even giving up prizes at that point. You're just
No.
doing 60 damage to yourself to a deck that's probably going to knock you out.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
Sean,
I would say pick up 1 copy of this. Anybody out
yeah.
there, as long as Mew is in format, pick up 1 copy of Drapion V and you're set.
And the cool thing about this Drapion V is, especially with 4 colorless costs in the attack, you know, this can be fit in any deck as a tech card. This could be literally anything. It can be a 1-of in your deck to just slap down, get it into the active, and just whack the Mew VMAX. Any other time, just discard it. It is a basic Pokemon, though, so there is a chance always that you're going to start it, which will feel really bad if you're not playing against Mew VMAX.
Yeah.
But who knows? Maybe if you get stuck in a situation where you have to put it on the field in like an Arceus V-Star deck, right? You can just power it up with your energies, and you know what? You can attack with it still. There are a lot of, of Rapid Strike and Fusion Strike cards out right now, so you might be able to get a little bit of stuff off.
Yeah, and even if you don't, you just take the L. You take the L there for the free dubs that you get against Mew.
You do what you can, but Sean, Hisuian Radiant Hisuian Sneasler. Say that 5 times fast.
Oh, God.
Basic Pokemon, 150 HP. Dark Pokemon, again, Radiant Pokemon. With the ability Poison Peak. Put 2 more damage counters on your opponent's poison Pokemon during Pokemon Checkup. Okay. Moving on to the next one, Sean, I'll say. Radiant Steelix Metal Pokemon, 170 HP basic Pokemon. 2 attacks. The first one, just a colorless energy beam, 20 damage. Attach up to 2 metal energies from your discard pile to this Pokemon. Metal colorless, 60 plus damage. Discard cards from the top of your deck until you have 1 card left in your deck. This attack does 30 more damage for each energy card discarded in this way. This is crazy.
This is a wild, like, I don't know. Maybe it only works with the Hisuian Basculegion.
You have Metal Saucer in your deck. This is wild, in my opinion.
Look, if somebody breaks this card, great. That's amazing. But the problem is, it's like you do the attack, and then what? You have 1 card left in your deck.
It's one of those things too where, like, if this card for some odd reason becomes like best deck in format for whatever reason, I don't know how, but let's just humor me and says it does. Your opponent plays what is that? The Stone Journer
or like a 1 of Durant.
Discard. Yeah, just Stone Journer, right? Put the top card of your opponent's deck in the lost zone, and then you just lose.
Yeah. I just like that's the problem with this card. Anyways, it's a funny card.
But this is a sick card because you use this card at the beginning of the game, and you can do like 800 damage.
Sure.
Because you're discarding like 40 cards in your deck.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, look, there might be a control deck out there that like, it's like I just need to get my deck down to 0. And this card does that. So
it's a sweet. It is the meme card of the set. But you know what the poster child card is, Sean, of the set?
Yeah.
Giratina V-Star. So because everybody's hyping this up like sliced bread, we're gonna talk about the V and the V-Star. I'll tell you all about it. Giratina V, Dragon basic Pokemon, 220 HP. First attack, colorless, Abyss Seeker. Look at the top 4 cards of your deck. Put 2 of them in your hand. Put the remaining cards in the Lost Zone. It also has Grass, Psychic, Colorless, Shred. 160 damage. This attacks affect opponent's Pokemon. Giving Shred to another Pokemon, and Shred is 160 damage.
That's a lot.
It's pretty doggone good.
Yep.
I mean, I have feelings about that, but whatever. Moving on to the V-Star, because you're probably going to evolve to the V-Star. For the same energy cost, Grass, Psychic, Colorless, Lost Impact, 280 damage. Put 2 energy cards attached to your Pokemon in the Lost Zone. Does not say just Giratina, right?
Yeah,
it's
true.
Any Pokemon, and it's 2 energy as well. So if you have a double turbo, right, you can put that in the Lost Zone, just that 1 card. You can put a twin energy, just that 1 card in the Lost Zone. So very, very interesting. And then with the V-Star power of Star Requiem, Grass and Psychic. Cost, you may use this attack if you have 10 or more cards in the Lost Zone. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now knocked out. So
Ooh.
kind of saying tried and true to the Giratina Garchomp GX, putting out, just instant knockouts. This one is saying, 10 or more cards in the Lost Zone, just free.
Honestly,
take a free knockout.
Honestly, I actually see this Grass Psychic as more than the Giratina Garchomp GX. I see it as like the Blacephalon GX's free prize card but it's even better because it's easy to power this up in one turn. Raihan, attach an energy, right? And then you take not just one prize probably, but you can take up to 3 prize cards for free effectively. Like that, it's insane that you can power this up in one turn and take up to 3 prizes.
Especially also because powering up that attack for 280 damage is not out of the realm of the ordinary at all, right? We have Gardenia's Favor, right, to power up grass energies. So, and I mean, I don't even know if that's the best way to power up this Pokemon. We've talked about different things and stuff like that to be able to power up in a single turn, like Fire. For example, we have cards like Raihan, things like that, Melanie as well. So
this is, and so the fact that this Pokemon, if a choice belt, right, you throw a choice belt onto this guy, you could probably knock anything out with the first attack. Take 2 prizes, 3 prizes, whatever. If you're up against a 3 prize deck, you need to basically swing once, take 3 prizes, use the second V-Star power attack, take your other 3 prizes, game over. It's kind of like ADP in some ways.
Well, also it's got an essence of like you have a backup plan that's pretty good too, right? If you're trying to exchange knockouts and you whiff a turn on that last energy, right, to get the lost impact. Yeah. Well, you're like, well, if I've got enough stuff in the Lost Zone, why don't I just use the V-Star power, right? 2 energies is way easier to get on than 3.
Yeah.
Right? So that is not a bad backup plan to be able to guarantee knockout in the prize exchange.
And the fact that it's 280 HP, which is beefy, and doesn't have any weakness because it's Dragon. This is a silly card. I think everybody kind of knows that, but like this deck is going to be the deck to look out for, and I genuinely am not sure what is stopping this deck immediately.
It's gonna be a good deck, right? And I don't know if it'll be figured out right away, but it's going to be a good deck that's going to be around. And you know what, you're probably going to have to consider beating another deck, Sean, that you may have to consider beating. Hisuian Gudra V-Star. You referenced this card earlier. 270 HP Dragon V-Star Pokemon. Has this first attack, Watered Metal Colorless, Iron Rollout, 200 damage. During your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 80 less damage from attacks, having that cheeky tank ability, as you were saying earlier, and the ability Moisture Star. I hate it.
Yeah.
Moisture Star. Worst V-Star power name in general. You may use this ability during your turn, heal all damage from this Pokemon. Sean, what else do you want to talk about with this card?
I mean, there's a bunch of, like, we had the Radiant Gardevoir that lets you take 20 less damage. There is that set of, that I think it's Clefable, or like, no, that's the
Togetic.
Oh, yes, the Togetic and the Togekiss lineup. Yes,
that heals damage when you evolve.
That heals damage, which you can, like, combo that with some Scoop Up Nets. I think combos of that, even things like Pokemon Center Lady, there is, I believe, an item card that takes less damage rather than giving more HP. Because I think also, like, if you can't be knocked out on your turn, what you really want is to take less damage, because over time that adds up to more than giving it 30 extra HP. So I think this, for anybody who loved Lucario Melmetal a couple of years ago, I think this is your replacement. It doesn't have any weakness, so there's no cheeky things that can come in and bop you. This is your wall stall deck. That's exactly what this is. So definitely a card that I think people need to also keep on their radar. Yeah,
I know a lot of people are excited about that deck and that card in general, so who knows?
yeah. I think of the dragons in this deck, it's the least powerful because
Well,
Giratina
yeah,
is
because
crazy.
Giratina is so good.
Yeah, but like a completely different archetype, right? And it only gives up 2 prizes. So like, let's say you get through one of these guys, you still got to get through 2 more probably.
Yeah, you got to get through 2 more. And,
Yeah.
Mew as well, can only have so many damage modifiers, that they can
Yep.
pump out. So it's very, very interesting. Sean, another card, a V-Star card that people are excited about, but may not be as great as the last two that we've talked about. Hisuian Zoroark V-Star, colorless Pokemon, 270 HP. Evolves from Hisuian Zoroark V. Colorless, Baleful Curse, 50 times damage. This attack does 50 damage for each of your Pokemon that has any damage counters on it. And then has a V-Star power of discard your hand and draw 7. Maybe this is the one that I was referring to earlier. What was Hisuian Decidueye?
It might have been this
V-Star.
one, yeah. It might have been this
Anyways, discard draw 7, a free Professor's Research in your hand, which is very, very cool. And then, I mean, it's a little bit harder to put damage counters on yourself. Like, if Spiritomb from Unbroken Bonds was still in this set,
Yeah.
like, this card would be pretty sick. But
I mean, the Gengar that we talked about with the ability of coming back from the discard, it puts damage counters on itself when it does that. So that could be a combo piece. But yeah, you still need like all 6 Pokemon on your field having a damage counter in order to do 300. And then even then, you're probably attaching a double turbo, so it's really only doing 280, which I say really only doing like that is that bad, but like,
still a good chunk of damage.
yeah. But the fact that it's a colorless Pokemon means that it could maybe find a home in different decks. So, yeah, interesting.
So, I mean, we got to move on, Sean. This podcast is a long
This is a
time, and
long
we
one.
both have to work. Yeah, we've got a long one. Let's move into some of the trainers that are going on right now. Which one do you want to talk about?
Which ones are actually? I haven't looked through these. Honestly.
You know what? Let's talk about Colress. Colress is an experiment. This is a card that I like and I'm excited about. Also, because I think it looks really, really good. Supporter card. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Put 3 of them in your hand and the remaining cards in the lost zone. So, again, put 3 of them, put 2 of them in the lost zone. This can really help you out with Giratina, not only because you're adding cards to the lost zone, you're putting cards into your hand as well. You're drawing cards and you're putting more cards in your hand than in the lost zone. So that's really, really cool. Plus, you could get some other cards that can help you put things in the lost zone. So you may really be only putting 2 in the front portion of it, but you could put more later.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like what else is particularly good. Like we have the Fantina, which is another lost zone. You can only play this card if you have 10 or more cards. During your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 120 less damage from the attacks of your opponent's Pokemon V. That's really interesting because it's just basically like if you are playing that Giratina V-Star, this is your late game supporter to basically be like, hey, I'm going to make it so that you can't knock out my Giratina V-Star maybe.
We'll go rapid fire on some of these trainers. Lake Acuity, a stadium card. Pokemon with water or fire. I'm sorry, water or fire energy. Or is it fighting?
I think it's fighting.
I think it's fighting, yeah. Water and fighting energy attached to them take 20 less damage from the opponent's Pokemon's attacks. So you could have your Palkias, right, running around with this. Lost City, another stadium. When a Pokemon is knocked out, put it in the Lost Zone instead of discarding it. That can help you out with Giratina, Sableye, things of that nature. We've got Lost Vacuum, an item card. Put a card from your hand into the Lost Zone in order to use this card. That's like the, what's that? Blender? The Lost Blender with the Jumpluff. Choose either a well, that was just the condition to be able to use this card. Put a card from your hand in the Lost Zone in order to use this. The effect of this card, choose either a Pokemon Tool card or Stadium card in play and put it in the Lost Zone. So it's like Field Blower, right? Except you're putting stuff in the Lost Zone, which could be really, really interesting.
Also, yeah, that's great because it's basically a 2-for-1, right? You play
Yeah.
one card, you get 2 in the Lost Zone. The second card, the Mirage Gate, that is how you're powering your Giratina up late game. Play this card only if you have 7 or more cards in your Lost Zone. And then you search your deck for 2 basic energies of different types, attach them to your Pokemon in any way that you like. So there's your Grass and your Psychic. Late game, you've played this card. If you have 7, if you have 10, whatever, like, it's basically a double dragon energy for, as an item card. It's nuts.
Especially, with Lost Vacuum, you can start putting stuff early.
Yep.
Lost City early, you can put Pokemon that get knocked out. Real small Pokemon, you can put them in. Also with Colress, right? Drawing some cards, putting some in the Lost Zone.
Yep.
Could help you out a ton. Very, very cool, I would say. And then Panic Mask, Sean, we're talking about Pokemon that do a lot of damage. There might be some Pokemon with just a wee little bit of damage or health left. This tool card, Panic Mask, prevents all damage done to the Pokemon this card is attached to by the attacks of your opponent's Pokemon with 40 HP or less remaining. So, could be really interesting if your opponent has no healing options and you do the perfect math. Maybe you don't necessarily take a knockout, but it might as well be the same if you've got this tool card on you, Sean.
Yeah. Just quickly looking through. There's so many. I think the gift energy. Well, okay. I will say one real quick. The Volo. Discard one of your benched Pokemon via and all attached cards. Great way to get rid of those setup Pokemon, those Crobat Vs, those Luminions. It does take your supporter for the turn, but I don't know. Late game, like in certain games, if this is a one-of card and you just need to get rid of something on the bench that's a liability, great option.
Also a great option if your opponent attacks a V, doesn't necessarily take a knockout, and maybe they're playing quick shooting as well or Zigzagoons in their deck, or because those cards are just popular, they're around, so Volo can get rid of those and you don't have to give up 2 prizes. But gift energy, the only special energy in this set. As long as this card is attached to a Pokemon, it provides 1 colorless energy. If the Pokemon this card is attached to is knocked out by damage from its opponent's attack, draw cards until you have 7 in your hand.
Yeah, this is great. There used to be an item card that let you draw cards when a Pokemon was knocked out, but it never got played.
The Lucky Egg.
Yes, and it's still in format, I think. It just never gets played. But this is great because you can't turn it off with like a tool jammer, or you can't tool scrapper it away. And it basically, I don't know. I think this is a good energy in a lot of these Giratina decks because it's just the 1 colorless you need.
Yeah,
so.
And you just draw a ton of cards after that to be able to go bonkers next turn and do whatever you want. But, Sean.
Jake.
That's our set review. This is a long one. This is the first long episode we've had in a while because this is the first set review we've had in a while. But Sean and I both got to go to work. He's got a meeting in like 20 minutes, and I have to. I have to just go to work. So thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Metapod, the Pokemon TCG podcast that revolves around the evolving meta. Have a great rest of the day. Buy Lost Origin. It's a super cool set. It's got Trainer Gallery in it, so if you're not into the competitive scene, just open it up for the cards. We talked about some of the arts. They're super great. And show us on Twitter at Metapod TCG.